Kia stood in a corner, unable to help but worry about what OS was doing. As a noble princess, why would she create a commotion in public? Hayes stood by, speaking with admiration in her voice. OS, the young lady, was using the utmost sincerity to cheer for the VIA family's night. She praised loudly, her voice becoming hoarse. Kayla couldn't help but step in to assist. She ordered her subordinates to cheer for JAO. Despite their team not being in the competition, KALRWay's support increased the team's morale. With the added strength, JAO swung his sword forcefully. His eyes showed determination, and those above, including Anaim, were surprised. The imitation sword of the arrogant young lady broke into two, a loud sound echoing in the air. Even Anaim couldn't believe herself. JAO, looking down from above, coldly declared Anaim's defeat. In the excitement below, OS was ecstatic. She couldn't believe her brother had won. The princess of the opposing side rushed to hug her defeated brother, celebrating the victory. JAO confidently descended from the stage, displaying a heroic demeanor despite the torn shoulder. OS praised him immediately, appreciating his effort. JAO acknowledged the cheering, and as he met OS, she quickly checked his wound. After a while, she urged him to find a doctor to treat the injury properly. Unbeknownst to OS, in the distance, a brewing vinegar jar was filled with intense jealousy. The royal prince observed OS's every move, recognizing her particular attention to this knight. Now, the defeated Anim started to approach, causing a commotion. She loudly criticized JAO, claiming that his victory was solely due to a good sword. JAO responded calmly, stating that Anaime lost because of her own shortcomings. This infuriated Anaime, and she began a rap about brave knights fighting on the battlefield, implying JAO wasn't deserving. OS, not wanting JAO to get involved in unnecessary conflicts, immediately ordered him to treat his wounds. Meanwhile, she stayed behind to deal with Anaime. OS warned her that although she may be a lower-ranked knight, peace today was a result of the sacrifices made by many. Enam's anger grew, and she questioned OS's right to instruct her. Home Fee too, the royal prince, stepped forward, using his royal status to command Enaim to leave immediately or face consequences. The tension escalated, showcasing the complex dynamics between the characters. Enaim, caught off guard, couldn't believe that the royal prince would treat her this way. She started to dig into the past, reminding the prince of their experiences on the battlefield. She questioned his actions, wondering why he would punish her for the sake of this woman. Before leaving, she turned back, threatening OS, saying she would make her pay sooner or later. OS remained unfazed by Amam's provocations, dismissing her insolent remarks. She assured the royal prince that she would handle it and suggested dealing with Anaim another time. Though appearing calm and gentle on the surface, OS had her own calculations. She recognized that she had become the target of the VIA family. However, she was determined not to falter in her decision to secure the position of the prince's consort. Meanwhile, in the forest near the sword-fighting arena, a disturbance erupted. Anya, the antagonist, wildly swung her sword at a tree trunk, leaving marks of Anim's defeat. Anya was furious, intending to use JAO's loss as leverage to convince the VIA family to prevent OS from marrying the royal prince. Anaim, still not entirely clueless, eyed DUC cautiously. The second prince made a proposition, suggesting a way for her brother to lose the match. DUC's plan involved manipulating Anami's emotions and using her anger to influence her brother's defeat. While Anaim questioned his motives, DUC remained ambiguous, silently desiring his brother's downfall. DUC proposed to assist Anaimi in turning the tables in her favor. However, Anaim, suspicious and perceptive, asked for clarification. DUC, without revealing his true intentions, suggested that he was interested in the woman Oyef. Anaim, though confused, sensed a potential ally and agreed to collaborate. As Anaim began to sway, Duc continued to manipulate her emotions, claiming that he wanted to regain the affections of the woman he loved. Anaim, caught up in the emotions and drama, found herself bewildered by the behavior of both the royal prince and the second prince. She couldn't comprehend why they seemed infatuated with Oyef. Duc skillfully used psychological tactics, hinting at the possibility of the royal prince marrying someone else. Anaim, driven to madness by the thought of losing her position, agreed to join forces with Duc. Meanwhile, Oyef had predicted Anaim's reaction and remained prepared for the unfolding events. The story introduced additional layers of complexity, intertwining the characters' emotions, ambitions, and desires. The upcoming showdown between Oyef and the royal prince added tension, and Anaim's involvement further intensified the drama. The narrative hinted at political maneuvering and personal vendettas, creating an intricate web of relationships within the story. Oyef didn't hesitate and looked at Gao with determination, full of encouragement. Of course, she exerted all her strength. After that, she approached him, placing her hand on Gao's shoulder, conveying the glory of the Anaim squad. "Give it your all. Don't let me down," she said, expressing her expectations. Gao seemed to have guessed Oyef's intentions. Despite outwardly following orders to reassure her, deep down, he harbored complex thoughts, transforming into a troubled individual. The battle between the prince and Gao finally commenced. The prince displayed a resolute and powerful posture as he charged into battle. Gao's opponent was equally imposing, fiercely wielding his sword. The clash of their swords echoed through the arena, and it was unclear who would emerge victorious. Kai couldn't contain herself and whispered to Oyef, expressing concern for her knight. Despite Kai's assurance that the knight's combat skills were inferior to the prince's, it only heightened Oyef's anxiety. The heart hung in suspense, silently praying for Gao's triumph, hoping that Prince Denon would honor the pact and spare him. Unbeknownst to them, the second prince and Anaim were on the elevated platform, plotting a sinister scheme. A subordinate addressed Prince Denon, presenting a hair strand found on the prince's battle armor. It turned out that the second prince planned to use a curse. With just a glance, the dark sorcerer understood the plan. After a brief examination, the sorcerer confidently assured, "Hand over the second prince to me." Using the hair, he crafted a cursed doll resembling the prince and explained that through the doll they could inflict harm on the cursed individual remotely. Hearing this, Anaim was worried about the potential harm to the prince and tried to intervene. She grabbed his hand, attempting to dissuade the second prince from executing the plan. However, the second prince calmly reassured her, claiming to have everything under control. He pretended to be reluctantly harming the prince for the sake of Oyef, while secretly relishing in the prince's impending downfall. Back in the arena, as Gao and the prince battled fiercely, a strange phenomenon occurred. The prince suddenly felt a sharp pain coursing through his body. Perplexed, he stumbled backward, experiencing an inexplicable ache. The hand holding his sword trembled, as if drained of vitality. The prince, in distress, couldn't comprehend why his hand was throbbing in such an unusual manner. Oyef, witnessing the abnormality from the stands, shared the confusion. She couldn't fathom why Gao seemed to be intentionally stepping back. Some speculated it was a strategic move to yield to Gao, but the truth was far more complex. Observing this unfold, the second prince on the elevated platform reveled in the success of the curse. He mocked the prince's suffering, relishing in the imminent demise of his rival. The sinister grin on his face betrayed his true intentions as he contemplated his next move. Enaim watched as Prince Dienan seemed to be on the brink of succumbing to the curse. She stretched her hand to halt the second prince, pleading, "I regret it. Please, no more stabbing." Merely by glancing at the expression, Enaim knew that Prince Dienan was already in great pain. She didn't want her brother to endure more suffering. However, the second prince wasn't easily deterred. In a calm tone, he said, "Enaim, now is not the time to falter. You want to seize this opportunity, don't you?" The second prince looked at her with enthusiasm, seemingly unaffected by her intervention. "It's excellent," he continued. "Now, let's witness the end of this battle." As he spoke, the second needle pierced the puppet representing Prince Dienan, and the needle dropped to the arena. The prince's sword also fell, creating a resonating clang. The prince, in pain, collapsed to the ground. Jao, thinking that the prince was genuinely defeated, casually asked, "Your Highness, are you okay?" However, the prince, still struggling, responded, "I'm fine, continue." Before he could finish his words, he suddenly convulsed, blood spurting from his mouth with each violent cough. Jao, now bewildered, questioned, "Your Highness, something's wrong." The once confident Prince Dienan was now struggling, weakened, and in apparent pain. Oyef, observing the unexpected turn of events, was alarmed. She continuously called out to him, and her heart felt constricted, as if gripped by an invisible force. Meanwhile, the mastermind behind the curse, the second prince, reveled in the success of his plan, gloating and praising the effectiveness of the curse. Unable to bear it any longer, Enaim raised her sword, pointing it directly at the second prince. She questioned him fiercely. "Are you mad? Do you want to harm my brother? If something happens to him, I will report you to the emperor immediately." But the second prince, rather than showing fear, responded arrogantly, "Enaim, don't be agitated. We are in the same boat now. The fate of the Shinkana family lies entirely in your hands." Enaim, realizing that her brother was in grave danger, couldn't tolerate the situation any longer. She aimed her sword at the second prince and demanded, "What madness is this? Are you trying to kill my brother? If anything happens to him, I will report you to the emperor immediately." In the palace, the atmosphere was stifling and tense. The once mighty Prince Dienan, renowned for his strength, now lay weakened on the bed. The royal physicians reported to Oyef, explaining that he had no visible injuries but was gradually losing his life force. They expressed their helplessness, having never encountered such a situation before. Hearing this, Prince Dienan, though physically weakened, tried to comfort Oyef. In a strained voice, he called out to her, and Oyef rushed to his side. She held onto his hand, reassuring him and trying to dispel his anxiety. Yet, Oyef couldn't shake the blame she felt for involving him in the tournament. Seeing Oyef's turmoil, Prince Dienan, with a gentle touch, comforted her, assuring her not to worry. He struggled to speak, urging her to leave his side and seek help from the emperor. However, Oyef remained by his side, a mind in turmoil haunted by self-blame. Meanwhile, Enaim, having left the arena, reflected on the unexpected turn of events. She couldn't believe that a momentary decision could lead to her brother's peril. Enaim decided to end their collaboration with the second prince, fearing for her brother's life. Back in the arena, the second prince continued to taunt Enaim, emphasizing the control he now held over the fate of the Shinkana family. As Enaim left, he maintained a sinister grin, reveling in the power he wielded. In this critical moment, the destiny of the Shinkana family and the outcome of the tournament hung in the balance. The once confident Enaim was now filled with regret, realizing the grave consequences of her actions. By now, Oyef understood what he wanted to say. She immediately interrupted him, and her eyes had a thin layer of unused tears. The prince must recover, and it wasn't that he wanted to marry her, so why did she agree? She just wanted him to be well, and she would marry him immediately. Although exhausted, when she heard the sincere words from Prince Dinan, Oyef tried to force a satisfying smile. Finally, she agreed to accept his feelings. Now, he seemed even happier than ever. However, as he finished speaking, he added more harmful remarks, leaving Oyef confused about what to do. Suddenly, at this moment, Jao hurriedly ran over to inform Oyef that someone had thrown something at the door and left a piece of paper. While speaking, he raised his hand, revealing a doll in his grasp. It was the same doll that the second prince had used to harm his own brother. The attached paper mentioned that someone had used this doll to harm Prince Dinan, but the identity and whereabouts of the sender remained unknown. Even Jao couldn't see who had thrown this down at the gate of the Duke's residence, because when the prince opened the door, there was no trace of the person, only the piece of paper left behind. Oyef held the doll in her hand, continuously examining it. Now she understood why Prince Dinan suddenly fell critically ill without a clear reason. It turned out that all of it was due to the villain exploiting this doll to cast a curse on him. The only person who could save Prince Dinan now was not the court physicians, but the great sorcerer Khuong. Thinking quickly, Oyef ran towards the prophet's room in the palace. While running, she asked Jao if Khuong worked there. She needed to find him because only he could save Prince Dinan. However, Jao was hesitant to let her enter the prophet's room, as it was a restricted area for the royal family. Ignoring their resistance, Oyef insisted that she was looking for the great sorcerer Khuong. The guards at the door hesitated, but ultimately decided not to let her in. Apologizing, they said they hadn't received orders to allow anyone in. Frustrated, Oyef whispered to Jao, asking if he could confront them. Jao was surprised at her boldness, but in the end, he couldn't let her face the consequences. Oyef then attempted to create a distraction to lure Khuong out. Jao tried to stop her, telling her it wasn't a reasonable action, but Oyef was desperate. She wondered where she found the strength, as she used to fear death so much. Now she couldn't understand where she got the motivation to speak such heartfelt words. Oyef questioned herself if she had developed feelings for Prince Dinan, pushing her to risk everything to save him. With tears streaming down her face, Oyef reached the royal prophet's room. 2 guards at the door immediately tried to stop her, stating that it was a forbidden area. However, Oyef persisted, claiming she was looking for the great sorcerer Khuong. The guards, still uncertain, looked at each other, unsure whether to allow the young lady to enter. Despite her emotional state, Oyef was determined. The guards, however, decided not to let her in, apologizing that they couldn't allow anyone to enter without orders. In a fit of frustration, someone in the crowd expressed anger, criticizing the strict rules. The situation became tense, and Oyef turned to Jao, quietly asking if he could handle the guards. Jao was surprised by her courage, but understood her desperation. He urged her to leave before things escalated. Facing the difficulty, Oyef realized she needed to create a diversion to draw Khuong out. Jao, witnessing her determination, became even more bewildered. He hadn't expected the usually strong Oyef to cry over Prince Dinan's arrival. In his heart, he felt something he hadn't acknowledged before. He truly liked the wicked young lady. Despite not wanting to admit it, Jao knew he had developed feelings for the cunning princess who had once tormented him. Now she was the one pulling him out of the muddy pit of emotions. Jao couldn't allow Oyef to take such risks. He stood in front of her, gazing at her with the affectionate demeanor of a young lady. Before leaving the house, he was still her loyal knight, determined to protect her at any cost. After expressing his commitment, he immediately drew his sword from its sheath, silently vowing that even if he had to push Oyef into the arms of another, he would willingly do anything for her. He raised his sword fiercely and declared, "These 2 knights are under my command. Take them, miss." Finding the right moment to enter the inner chamber, Jao's sword was already unsheathed. The 2 knights were prepared for battle, questioning loudly, "What do you want? Don't come any closer. We don't want to resort to violence." Jao, with a stern tone, requested the young lady to meet Lord Khuong. He urged, "Please inform him immediately. Otherwise, we'll have no choice but to barge in." The 2 knights doubted Jao's boldness to carry out such an act, knowing that entering the forbidden area was a crime punishable by death. However, Jao was resolute. Jao and Oyef's continuous efforts eventually led to a chaotic commotion, grabbing the attention of Khuong. The door to the prophet's room slowly opened, and Khuong emerged like a savior. Angrily, he questioned the disturbance, asking who was making noise outside. Even the parrot on his shoulder mimicked the clamor. Oyef, now able to smile, immediately called out to Khuong. Before he could greet her, his parrot fluttered its wings and greeted her first. Witnessing the chaos outside the forbidden area, Khuong realized that something was amiss. Oyef, almost out of breath, handed the doll to Khuong and explained that it was used to harm the crown prince. She emphasized the urgency, stating that the doll drained the prince's life force rapidly without leaving any visible wounds. Khuong, with a serious expression, carefully examined the doll, wondering about the curse and the reason behind it. Oyef anxiously pressed for answers about the curse. Khuong clarified that it wasn't a spell, rather it was a technique from the Eastern continent. The world in the novel was divided into 2 major continents, the East, where magical arts flourished, and the West, where magic was prevalent. Khuong continued to inspect the doll, noticing a hidden needle with a strand of the crown prince's hair. Realizing the severity of the situation, Oyef was horrified. Khuong further explained that the cursed doll caused corresponding injuries to the prince when the needle pierced the doll. As Khuong delved into his examination, he discovered another needle on the doll, placed in the heart area. Oyef now understood why Crown Prince Dinan had been enduring such excruciating heartache. Khuong's thorough examination revealed the cruelty of the assailant, who turned out to be none other than the second prince. Just as the truth unfolded, the second prince, accompanied by a group of knights, arrived. Nonchalantly acknowledging the chaos, he explained that the emperor had summoned Oyef for questioning about Crown Prince Dinan's mysterious illness. The second prince, amused by the situation, joked about how Oyef, who was seeking refuge just a while ago, was now in danger. In the midst of the conversation, the second prince's parrot imitated the commotion outside. Khuong, however, wasn't amused and urged everyone to focus on the urgency of saving Crown Prince Dinan's life. The second prince assured Oyef that the emperor would handle the investigation while emphasizing the importance of rescuing the crown prince. With the assurance of the emperor's involvement, Oyef, Khuong, and Jao joined forces to find a cure for the curse and save the life of Crown Prince Dinan. The situation had reached a critical point, and the urgency to act was paramount. Oyef looked at Khuong with a pleading gaze. For her, the life of Crown Prince Dinan was more important than anything else. Even if she were to face danger, it didn't matter. Her resolute attitude surprised Khuong, who couldn't help but stare at her. Outside, the gentle sunlight bathed the palace, creating a warm and serene atmosphere. However, within the palace, the air was stifling, almost suffocating. All involved parties had gathered in the main hall of the palace, including the Shinkana family. As Oyef faced the emperor's serious inquiry, she confidently defended herself. She declared her innocence and explained that she had breached the forbidden area only to invite Lord Khuong to help break the curse on Crown Prince Dinan. The emperor, taken aback, had not been informed of the curse until now. OS presented the evidence showing the cursed doll and the method used to harm the crown prince. Khuong, who had confirmed the prince's condition, supported OS's claims. The emperor, examining the evidence, asked if someone within the palace intended to harm the crown prince. The second prince, uneasy, tried to divert attention, claiming that the situation was a ploy by the VIA family. However, OS continued her analysis, suggesting that the VIA family might be using the chaos to their advantage. The emperor, intrigued by OS's reasoning, asked for more details. The leading lady, the first supporting character, stepped forward, accusing the VIA family of orchestrating the whole incident. She claimed that the VIA Duke had ordered his knights to defeat Crown Prince Destined during the tournament. She further accused the VIA family of deliberately collapsing during the match to create a diversion. The VIA family's deceitful intentions were laid bare, and the emperor, guided by the evidence and testimonies, decided to take action. The VIA Duke, confronted with the accusations, showed no remorse and continued to provoke. However, the head of the Shinkana family urged the emperor to detain the VIA family temporarily for investigation. The VIA Duke, seemingly calm, explained that he had only wanted to test the loyalty of his daughter, who was now in the custody of the emperor. Despite the emotional turmoil, OS found herself moved by the unexpected protective actions of the VIA Duke towards his daughter. The VIA Duke bowed respectfully, agreeing to cooperate with the investigation, but pleading not to involve his daughter. The emperor, considering the situation, agreed to detain the VIA family for investigation, but assured that OS would not be implicated. OS, deeply touched by the VIA Duke's actions, couldn't help but be silent. In her previous life, her parents had divorced early, leaving her and her mother struggling in poverty. She had grown up alone until adulthood. The unexpected display of paternal care from the VIA Duke made OS realize that not all families were as broken as hers had been. She was moved by the father's willingness to protect his daughter, even in the face of potential consequences. The complex web of relationships within the palace had brought about a moment of understanding and compassion, breaking through the walls of suspicion and hostility. OS had never felt what a father's love was like. She had never known the comfort of a broad shoulder shielding her from the rain and wind. Now, in the presence of Duke Vaya, she experienced something she had dreamt of countless times in her past life: the sacrificial love of a father, willing to protect his daughter at all costs. Moved by the warmth and tenderness of her father, OS approached and embraced his arm. The Duke reassured her, smiling gently and expressing that with him around, nothing would harm her. The more the Duke showed care, the more OS felt her heart enveloped in a sacred, warm, and gentle affection, like feathers gently swaying, resonating with her emotions. The emperor, satisfied with Duke Vaya's cooperation, swiftly ordered the knights to detain the VIA family for further investigation. However, as the tension reached its peak, the main door of the palace suddenly opened. Behind it stood Crown Prince Destined and the great sorcerer Khuong. The Crown Prince immediately intervened, requesting a halt to the proceedings. His presence stunned those involved, leaving them in awe. Destined approached OS, his demeanor caring, gently touching her face. He apologized for his tardiness and reassured her of his well-being. The second prince, watching the scene unfold, silently speculated about the decisions OS had made. Khuong, standing beside the crown prince, affirmed that the real perpetrator, a Eastern sorcerer, had escaped. The emperor, angered by this revelation, demanded the immediate removal of the sorcerer's mask. However, a mysterious smoke surrounded the area, and when it cleared, the sorcerer had vanished, leaving only his cloak behind. The emperor, frustrated by the escape, ordered a thorough search for the Eastern sorcerer throughout the palace. The danger seemed to have passed, and the atmosphere relaxed. The crown prince, pulling Oyef back into his embrace, reassured her. In this moment of calm, he jokingly mentioned that he had lost the swordsmanship competition. Oyef, freed from her previous entanglements, no longer hesitated. She was determined to face the emotions within her and confessed her love for Crown Prince destined. The Crown Prince, overjoyed, pulled her even closer, and the two lovebirds found themselves in a sweet and tender moment. With the assurance of love, the Crown Prince now had the support of Oyef. The couple, having gone through a series of trials, decided to face their families and announce their desire to be together. The Crown Prince, beaming with joy, held Oyef's hand and approached both families, asking for their blessing to unite in marriage. The narrative shifted from the intense and suspenseful atmosphere to a heartwarming and joyful scene as the couple sought approval from their families. The love that had blossomed amidst chaos and challenges was now ready to embark on a new chapter, promising a future filled with happiness and unity. The young nobleman forced me into this situation. The emperor, reluctantly dealing with the situation, coughed and asked about it. If Duke VIA agrees, I am naturally pleased. Earlier, I misunderstood the VIA family, and now I apologize. He extended his hand towards Duke VIA to seek his opinion on the marriage between Prince destined and Miss VIA. This union requires the consent of Duke VIA. Surprisingly, the emperor, despite being in a difficult situation, did not make a unilateral decision, but sought the opinions of both Duke VIA and his father. This made Prince destined anxious, fearing that Duke VIA might not agree to the marriage. Duke VIA, with a calm demeanor, requested a few minutes to talk with his daughter. The father and daughter eventually left the main hall and walked through the luxurious corridors. Duke VIA looked worried, observing his daughter. Meanwhile, the citizens were captivated by the emotional scene, not knowing the underlying concerns. In their private conversation, Enime expressed a determination to marry Prince destined. She assured her father of their genuine love and requested his support. Duke VIA, moved by his daughter's conviction, agreed to the marriage. Back in the royal ballroom, the emperor happily announced the engagement of Prince destined and Miss VIA. The nobility congratulated the couple, expressing wishes for a happy and prosperous life together. Enime, standing aside, felt a burning anger within as she realized the love story was unfolding without her. As the joyous atmosphere continued, Prince Duc, the second prince, approached, taunting Enime about her change of attention. He hinted at the consequences of her actions, alluding to her potential loss in the game of love. Despite Enime's attempt to dismiss Prince Duc, he continued to manipulate her emotions. Prince Duc suggested a scenario where Enime's actions would lead to Prince destined marrying her, and Enime fell into a trap of regrets. Enime, driven by love, disregarded the potential repercussions and clung to Prince Duc, seeking his assistance to win back Prince destined. Prince Duc, still in control of the situation, assured her that there was indeed another way. Eventually, Enime found herself in the mysterious palace of Prince Duc. Inside, she was greeted by a smiling stranger, the captain of the Shinkana Knights, someone she had not seen for a long time. The appearance of the prince of the Deon Empire, Leon, horrified Enime. She vaguely understood the implications of the presence of the diplomatic prince from another nation. She immediately pointed an accusing finger at Prince Duc, questioning his motives. Accusing him of conspiring with the enemy and betraying their country, Enime resisted. However, she soon found herself at a disadvantage as Duc swiftly restrained her. The Prince of Leon, standing nearby, supported Duc in his actions, claiming that they had an agreement. They planned to use the power of multiple nations to elevate Prince destined to the throne of the Orange Empire. In return, The Orange Empire would become a vassal state of Leon, and the Shinkana family would rise to prominence. Dius Yuste released his grip on Anaim, but his threatening words lingered. He warned her that refusing their plan would lead to severe consequences for the Shinkana family. Anaim, still in pain from Duc's previous attack, felt fear and questioned their intentions. The narrative shifted to the celebration after the sword competition victory. The VIA family, previously dominant in the business sector, had now achieved recognition in martial arts. A grand feast was held, attended by various guests, including Ander, Kalya, and Haai. During the celebration, Kalya and Haig expressed their joy and camaraderie. They enjoyed the food, and Kalya especially appreciated a dish prepared by Oyef. However, the Eastern-style spicy wine Oyef had brewed became a challenge for many guests, causing discomfort. Kalya and Haig, despite the initial shock, continued to enjoy the festivities. Anaim, still recovering from the recent ordeal, was uneasy. The celebration was in full swing, and Oyef raised her glass to toast Jao's freedom. Khuong expressed concern about Jao's future, prompting him to share his intention to visit his father's grave. Jao, having lost everything after his family's downfall, wanted to go to this family's dilapidated house on the outskirts. However, he had not thought about his future plans beyond that. Oyef, engrossed in the celebration, continued to interact with the guests. Khuong, curious about Jao's plans, questioned him about his future. Jao expressed his desire to visit his father's grave first, but had not made further decisions. Meanwhile, Kalya and Haid engaged in cheerful conversation, and Anaim remained in pain, haunted by Du's threat. As the celebration continued, Jao, still uncertain about his future, observed Oyef enjoying the festivities without paying attention to his dilemma. He wondered if he should propose to Oyef to stay temporarily at the VIA mansion. However, he hesitated, unsure if she would agree. Time passed quickly, like a dog running in the field. Unexpectedly, in the blink of an eye, the wicked young lady underwent a complete transformation, as if her soul had been exchanged. Between Jao and Oyef, countless memories were created. It wasn't just him. Now, besides Oyef, there were other friends, such as the esteemed He Yuan and the Prince Cao from above. They were all devoted to protecting Oyef, with Jao willing to sacrifice everything for her. The sisters Tu and Tilaya brought a refreshing breeze of laughter into her life. Jao, with a longing desire, wished to secure a small place in Oyef's heart. Even a tiny fraction of her heart would bring him joy. However, Oyef shattered Jao's thoughts with a cheerful suggestion. The emperor had ordered the investigation of the Stuat family's case. Temporarily, Jao was asked if he wanted to stay at VIA's house and await the results. Despite Jao's earlier heroic statements, Oyef coldly rejected him, stating that he was no longer her knight. VIA's house was not suitable for him. Jao, with a disappointed expression, did not want people of such appearance around his soon-to-be wife. However, VIA generously offered some rooms if necessary, inviting Jao to make himself at home. VIA, using elephant gestures, vehemently declined the prince's kind offer. Jao, expressing his disdain, accepted the rejection and sarcastically commented that if VIA wanted to harbor his enemy in their home, it was his business. Frustrated, Jao felt like he was falling from the sky, and Oyef, trying to ease the situation, persuaded him to stay for her coming-of-age ceremony. Unexpectedly, Oyef's seemingly harmless words left Jao stunned. He hadn't anticipated that, in her heart, they were just friends. The realization hit him that he was no more than a friend to her, similar to Khuong and HAIHE. Before JAO could decline, OS playfully blinked and suggested that he should stay for her sake. Seeing the joy on her face, JAO couldn't help but burst into laughter. His inner confusion was resolved. JAO no longer expected a distant love from OS. Having a place in her heart, whether as a friend or a stranger, was enough for him. On another day at OS's bakery, the two, having committed to a serious relationship, were deeply entwined. OS enthusiastically presented 2 special cakes for the Prince ANDER, prepared for her upcoming coming-of-age ceremony. As the prince tasted the cakes, he seemed overwhelmed by the flavor of love, unable to move his hands and feet to eat without OS assistance. Curiously, a mysterious guest appeared, dressed peculiarly despite the hot weather. With a bound-toe cloak, winter hat, and a feathered tail, the odd attire caught the attention of everyone. Despite his eccentric appearance, he casually greeted and expressed a desire to buy some pastries. After a quick selection, the mysterious man picked a small cake without much interest in the pastries. OS, polite as always, packed the cake for him, adding a friendly smile and a thank you before he left. Observing the man, the prince couldn't stop evaluating him, feeling an inexplicable familiarity. It turned out that the mysterious pastry buyer was none other than the prince of the Leon Empire, who used the pastry purchase as an excuse to investigate. These 2 enemies were soon to confront each other. DUC, waiting in an alley, eagerly asked JAO, the emperor's prince, how he felt about the situation, given his romantic and idealistic nature. JAO expressed his admiration for OS, likening her to a beautiful rose. However, he lamented that beauty often comes with an owner, referring to the impending marriage with DENAN. DUCC, with a sinister look, assured JAO that everything had been arranged, and he would make OS his woman after her coming-of-age ceremony. DUCC emphasized the necessity of having a strategy, indicating that he wouldn't miss a chance to claim OS from DENAN. The prince confidently assured JAO that he had a plan in place. DUC, wearing a cruel smile, envisioned OS suffering regret for not choosing him. During OS's coming-of-age ceremony, she appeared in a different outfit, escorted by Khuong. When DENAN arrived, OS shyly inquired about his appearance. DENAN, unable to resist her beauty, praised her, causing Khuong to gracefully hand over OS's hand to DENAN. DENAN pulled her close, expressing his love, and congratulated her on reaching adulthood. As OS and DENAN were about to proceed, DUC intervened, suggesting that, on such an important occasion, it would be fitting to introduce DENAN's queen to other nobles. Although disappointed, DENAN agreed, handing OS over to DUC temporarily. Witnessing the 2 departing, the nobles bowed respectfully to DENAN, expressing their greetings. NEO, the Duke, complimented OS' upbringing and joked about her growing potatoes and sweet potatoes, emphasizing the positive impact on the kingdom's food supply. Despite OS' efforts to appear grateful, she couldn't help but suspect ulterior motives behind the compliments. The praise continued as Shinkana, Anaim, and others took turns applauding OS. Even DUC joined the flattering chorus, seemingly changing his attitude. However, OS and DENAN remained wary, suspecting hidden intentions behind the sudden turn of events. Anaim, trying to act refined, approached OS and praised her, claiming that with DENAN as the prince consort, the kingdom was blessed. Anaim's sudden change in demeanor left OS and DENAN astonished and cautious. DUC, attempting to divert DENAN's attention, mentioned some concerns about his mother's health, requesting a private conversation. DENAN, feeling obligated to attend to family matters, excused himself, asking OS to wait for him. As Denon's figure disappeared, OS couldn't help but wonder about the true intentions of DUC and Anime. The atmosphere left her and Denon perplexed, contemplating the unexpected turn of events during what was supposed to be a joyous occasion. Anime began her attack, looking at OS with complex eyes and calling her name in a sincere tone to increase authenticity. She even pounded her chest, expressing regret for her previous actions and sincerely apologizing to OS. Anime asked for forgiveness and hoped they could be friends. OS, though suspicious, pretended to be forgiving and agreed to be friends. However, she couldn't shake off the feeling that Anime's sudden change was too good to be true. As Anime continued her act, she intensified her performance, expressing pain and asking OS to take her to the resting room. Despite knowing it was a ploy, OS decided to play along, curious about Anime's true intentions. She pretended to trust Anime and agreed to accompany her to the resting room. However, Kalya and Haide, observing the situation, sensed something was amiss and followed to ensure OS's safety. Inside the resting room, Anime continued her act, faking illness and asking OS to stay with her. However, OS, growing more suspicious, wanted to see how far Anime would go with her deceit. Unbeknownst to them, Jao was waiting in the room, and Anime's plan involved trapping OS. As Anime locked the door behind them, Jao revealed himself, teasing OS and expressing his desire for her. OS, frightened and trapped, questioned how Jao could enter the room. Jao, reveling in the situation, explained that everything had been prepared. To make matters worse, the mysterious wizard who had previously harmed Denon appeared, revealing himself as part of the plan. OS, shocked and helpless, couldn't believe the turn of events. The wizard, pleased with the situation, expressed delight in tormenting OS. The room was filled with vines that restrained OS, making her unable to move. Despite OS' accusations and realization of the trap, Jao and the wizard were satisfied with their plan. The vines tightly ensnared OS, leaving her at the mercy of her captors. As the situation unfolded, Kalya and Haide, who had followed OS, became aware of the danger. They realized the trap was set by Jao and Anime, and they needed to find a way to rescue OS from this perilous situation. The tension in the room escalated, leaving OS facing an uncertain fate. Jao, intrigued, approached her. His entire being exuded an aura of deadly breath. His hand gripped tightly under his chin. Olis forced her to look directly into her eyes and declared, "I will become your first lover. Today, I want to be in this garden. Pluck a rose, and it means you yield." Inside, everything was silent and peaceful. Anime couldn't help but be intrigued, trying to peer inside with unending curiosity. However, there was no movement inside. Success indeed. If the elder prince knew OS lost her purity, he would surely not marry her. Luckily, Kalya and Haide arrived just in time, though unaware of the imminent danger OS faced. Seeing Anime's sneaky behavior made Kalya suspicious. She asked Haide, "Why is Anime here? Where is OS?" Clearly, the two were together moments ago. Kalya and even Haide, with his intuition, felt something was amiss. Kalya swiftly instructed Haide to inform the Crown Prince about Anime's suspicious actions, convinced that Anime had some plot against OS. Despite Haide's concern for OS, he couldn't help but worry about the spirited heiress. Turning back to Kalya, he warned her not to act recklessly before he returned. Although Kalya promised Haide to prioritize safety, she couldn't stand idly by while OS was in danger. Approaching Anime with a serious tone, Kalya questioned, "What is Anaim doing, young miss? Wasn't OS with you just now?" Internally, Anaim panicked. If discovered, not only would her own life be in jeopardy, but the entire Shinkana family could be implicated. Determined to stay composed, Anaim pretended innocence, claiming she was just exploring the area as OS had separated earlier. Anaim's evasive behavior heightened Kalwa's suspicion. With her background as the previous protagonist, Kalwa could sense deceit. Anaim mentioned that the room they were in didn't connect with the outside, further deepening Kalwa's doubt. Panicking, Kalwa considered the possibility that OS might be trapped inside. Anaim desperately tried to fabricate excuses, but Kalwa, despite being a noble lady, was no match for Anaim's deceitful schemes. Feeling the urgency to rescue OS, Kalwa wanted to enter, but Anaim vehemently blocked her path, shouting that it was impossible to go in. Outside, Haid quickly reported the situation to the Crown Prince Destined. Alarmed, Destined ordered Haid to inform Duke Valais, sealing off the area to prevent any interference. The tense situation unfolded as Kalwa interrogated Anaim about her actions, suspecting Anaim had done something to OS. Despite Kalwa's weak physical condition compared to Anaim, who was a skilled swordsman, Kalwa couldn't just stand by. The realization that OS might be confined inside intensified Kalwa's frustration, while Anaim maintained her composure, preventing Kalwa from entering. The cries into the room, calling OS's name, were met with silence. OS, now completely controlled by the mysterious enchantment, couldn't utter a sound. The overwhelming power of the enchantment left Kalwa and Haid helpless on the outside, realizing the dire situation they were facing. Outside, the commotion grew louder, but Chao remained unfazed. With a sinister smile, he started examining his surroundings. Realizing the need for swift action, OS, trapped within, wished desperately to scream out a warning, but her voice couldn't break through the powerful enchantment. The unfolding events left everyone on edge, and the fate of OS hung in the balance. Jao became interested and approached her. His whole body exuded a chilling breath of death. He tightly clasped her chin with his hand. OS forced herself to look straight into his eyes, and he declared, "I will become your first lover today. I want to be in this flower garden. Pluck a rose to bring you down." Feeling uneasy, Anaim tried to peek inside with curiosity. The atmosphere inside was calm and quiet, making Anaim suspicious. She strained to look inside, but couldn't see any movement. It seemed like Jao had succeeded. If the prince found out, OS would lose her purity, and their engagement might be broken. Fortunately, Kalwa and Haid arrived in time. Although they didn't know the imminent danger OS was facing, seeing Anaim's sneaky behavior made Kalwa suspicious. Anaim pretended innocence, claiming she was just looking around. Kalwa and Haid were not convinced and suspected that something was wrong. Kalwa quickly ordered Haid to report to the prince about the situation. She wanted him to be aware that Anaim might be plotting something against OS. Kalwa warned Anaim not to act recklessly, emphasizing safety above all. Despite the promise to Haid, Kalwa couldn't stand still while OS was in danger. Anaim questioned Kalwa about her actions, pretending she didn't know what was happening. Kalwa, sensing deceit, became more suspicious. Kalwa, realizing that Anaim might have trapped OS, desperately wanted to enter the room to see if everything was okay. Anaim vehemently opposed, claiming there was nothing inside. Kailaway suspected that OS was indeed trapped inside and confronted Anaim, but she couldn't match Anaim's deceptive abilities. Kailaway could only helplessly call out to OS, who was trapped but unable to respond. Anaim, in a moment of panic, fabricated a story about OS wandering off and losing her way in the mansion. Kailaway found it more suspicious but couldn't challenge Anaim's cunning words. Realizing that OS was likely trapped and Anaim had deceived them, Kailaway desperately wanted to enter but was powerless against Anaim's magic. Jao, indifferent to the commotion outside, began to act aggressively inside the room. He tore OS' clothes violently, causing her to cry out in fear. In her mind, OS could only think of Prince Dienan, hoping he would come to her rescue. As soon as the prince arrived, he was furious and demanded to know Anaim's whereabouts. Taking advantage of the distraction caused by the prince's anger, Kailaway immediately restrained Anaim and reported the situation. The prince rushed inside, desperately calling OS's name. The sight of OS, battered and bruised, in his arms made the prince furious. He blamed himself for not protecting her and apologized repeatedly. Despite OS trying to console the prince, he was consumed by guilt. He refused to listen to Anaim's explanations and carried OS away, leaving Anaim shocked and fearful. Back in the palace, the prince informed the emperor about Anaim's betrayal. Anaim tried to defend herself, but the emperor decided to lightly punish her with a reprimand. Seeing the prince's rage, Kailaway and Haide couldn't help but feel satisfaction. However, Anaim remained defiant, claiming it was a misunderstanding. In the end, the emperor chose not to take severe action against the Shinkana family due to their importance in the empire. Anaim, despite her plotting, escaped major consequences. The prince, now more protective of OS, couldn't shake off the guilt. The episode exposed the fragility of their relationship, and Anaim continued to harbor ill intentions. In this situation, Anaim found herself unable to avoid apologizing. Her expression, forced and unparalleled, lacked any trace of remorse. She struggled to utter a few words, apologizing as the early morning sun sparkled like 1,000 golden flowers. "Have I apologized enough?" she wondered, looking around. It seemed as though she was the one being wronged. After the recent horrifying events, if Prince Dienan had arrived just a moment later, OS couldn't bear to think about it. From that day forward, a silent determination grew within her, marking the official beginning of the battle between her and Anaim. Therefore, there was no reason for her to accept Anaim's insincere apology. At this moment, OS coldly observed Anaim, her eyes filled with resentment. "I won't accept your apology," OS declared. "I will investigate this matter further. You'd better not expose any vulnerabilities." As the night returned, the lights in the Vi Duke's mansion still shone brightly. Prince Dienan remained by OS's side, regretful about his earlier ineffectiveness. "I am useless," he admitted. "I can't even protect someone I love. What's the use of being a prince?" OS, attempting to console him, advised, "You shouldn't let this shadow linger. The emotional aspect of this matter has concluded, Prince Dienan." Thinking about Anaim's determined face, Prince Dienan felt a tingling sensation in his hands and feet. His gaze was resolute, assuring her peace of mind. "I won't give up. I will make Anaim and the Shinkana family collapse." OS, with raised eyebrows, responded, "Even if I don't do anything all day, I won't let her off the hook." In a world that respects the strong, if you want the next time not to be so bitter, you must replace the dominant position of the Shinkana family in the king's heart. Addressing Prince Dienan boldly, Ace discussed the audacious idea of cultivating an army capable of standing alongside him. She wanted to know how to achieve it, but unexpectedly, Prince Dienan dismissed the idea, deeming it unnecessary. He believed that political matters like these were better handled by him alone. He didn't want his beloved flower to suffer because of him. "Be the carefree girl you are," he suggested. "Just enjoy life. I don't want my flower to suffer for me." However, Oyef persisted in her desire to contribute. She looked seriously into his eyes, affirming, "But I want to stand by your side and fight for you." Seeing Prince Dianan hesitate, Oyef stepped forward, playing the role of a charming woman, captivating him with her breath. The two intertwined, and Oyef tried to persuade Prince Dianan to teach her. As for Prince Dianan, how could he refuse such a tempting scene? In the Shinkana mansion, even though it was late at night, the lights were still on. The Duke Shinkana seemed furious. Given the daughter he had, it wasn't surprising. He ordered Anaim to remain on her knees until morning, not allowing her to rise without his permission. Anaim could only endure and repent for her sins, but her defiant expression didn't convey much remorse. Recalling the recent failed plan, Anaim had fervently questioned the UC earlier. The blame was placed on him for being unable to protect Prince Dianan. Now the plan was ruined, and DUC had warned Anaim not to address him so intimately. With the revelation of the witch, Prince Dianan's pursuit was inevitable. If he found evidence, the entire Shinkana family, including Anaim, would face dire consequences. Feeling panicked, Oyef wondered what to do. Diuk, the cunning one, urged her to steal the battle map of the Duke Shinkana and present it to Jao. By creating external conflicts, Prince Dianan would be too preoccupied to pursue the witch. Oyef, recognizing the villainous nature of DUC, pondered her next move. Now, faced with DUC's devious plan, she had no choice but to steal the battle map and offer it to Jao. All she needed was to create a conflict on the outside, and Prince Dianan would naturally have no time to pursue the witch. Indeed, a true antagonist, always exploiting Anaim to the fullest. While Anaim remained oblivious to the consequences, this individual never cared about the aftermath. Always criticizing other noble ladies as fools, it seemed she had never looked in the mirror to see what kind of person she was. Truly foolish to the core. In her dazed state of love, Anaim's eyes were clouded, imagining the day when she and Prince Dianan would be together. Prince Dianan, in turn, envisioned a day when he would realize that because of him, she could accomplish anything. After careful cultivation, the OS group finally achieved results. Today, they eagerly presented their findings to the Emperor, even inviting him to savor the taste of their success. As for the Emperor, he was pleased with the beautifully arranged display of food. "How is it?" Oyef inquired, and the Emperor was highly satisfied.